Let us begin by reading the word problem out loud. James and Gerardo are competitive basketball players. During their championship game, Gerardo scored quadruple the amount of points as James. If James scored 12 points, how many points did Gerardo score? Now, the first step in our strategy for problem solving is always to analyze the problem. So let's go ahead and reread it and see what other information we could extract. So now we definitely want to identify first the question that's being asked. In this case, the question being asked is, how many points did Gerardo score? So now that we know what the question being asked is, we actually know what our variable is going to represent. So keep in mind that our assigning of the variable is going to come directly from the question being asked. So again, the question is, how many points did Gerardo score? So then our variable, and again, we'll just use the letter x, any variable will do though. So then x is going to represent the number of points Gerardo scored. Again, it's just simply the question reworded in the form of a statement. So now let us get back to analyzing our word problem. So let's see what other information we can extract. So we know James and Gerardo are competitive basketball players. And now the key here is what happened during that championship game. During the championship game, we know that Gerardo scored quadruple the amount of points as James. And we also know that same night, James scored 12 points. So the keyword being quadruple. Quadruple is a keyword here. So we're going to have to incorporate that. So now let's suppose Gerardo and James scored the same amount of points. So if they scored the same amount of points, then since James scored 12, Gerardo also scored 12. Now let's suppose Gerardo scored twice the amount of James. So then if James scored 12 and Gerardo scored twice that amount, well, that's going to be 12 plus 12. The indicator is twice, meaning 2 times the amount. However, we can rewrite that as multiplication using 2 times the quantity 12. Now suppose we did that with triple. So if it was triple, suppose Gerardo scored triple the amount of points as James. Then since James scored 12 and Gerardo scored triple that, that's going to be 12 plus 12 plus 12 again. And now we can rewrite that using multiplication as triple, meaning 3 times the quantity of points, 12. So now we're going to incorporate this using the word quadruple. So now if twice means 2, triple means 3, quadruple is going to be an indicator of 4 times the amount. So whenever you see the word quadruple, that's the same thing as 4 times the amount. So these go hand in hand. Just like twice represents twice the amount, or meaning 2 times the amount, and triple represents 3 times the amount. So let's go ahead and form our equation. So the question is, how many points did Gerardo score? Well, that's represented by a variable x, and that's going to be equal to quadruple the amount of points as James. So quadruple, that's an indicator of 4, and quadruple the amount of points as James, which we already talked about, and that's 12. So our equation is going to be x is equal to 4 times 12. So when solving the equation, we always start off with the original equation found in step 3. So now all we need to do here is multiply the 4 times the 12. That's because the x is already completely isolated by itself on the left-hand side. So go ahead and bring that down. And we'll do 12 times 4 off to the side of scratch work. So we're going to do 4 times 2, which is 8. And then we'll do 4 times 1, which is 4. So then 12 times 4 is 48. Therefore, our variable x is equal to 48 numerically. Now we're going to go ahead and say our conclusion clearly using words. So the question to be answered, how many points did Gerardo score? So we're going to go ahead and mimic that in our conclusion. So our conclusion is going to be Gerardo scored 48 points. Again, the conclusion is simply the question to be answered, reworded in the form of a statement. So now let us go ahead and check the result. So again, we'll start off with the original equation found in step 3. That is, we'll use x is equal to 4 times 12. However, now we know the numerical value of x. We know x is equal to 48. So we're going to go ahead and substitute that in for x. And the remainder will stay exactly the same, 4 times 12. And luckily for us, we already did 4 times 12. We know that to be equal to 48. So we'll go ahead and substitute that in there. Again, we still have the 48 on the left-hand side. And now on the right-hand side, we also have a 48. So the question you always want to ask yourself is the left-hand side equal to the right-hand side? In this case, 48 is equal to 48. So our solution is correct.